Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Preet Sandhu, founder Startup Steers. Would like to thank today esteemed speakers and audience of the session, The Art and Science of the Valuation. Today's session is our fourth and last webinar of the year 2021. It will be very insightful for all the budding, aspiring, and growing tech-driven innovative startups and businesses. With the vision towards empowerment of the startups, we at Startup Peers are incorporating smart capital in the form of our domain expertise in the various innovative ideas to drive them from the concept towards the validated, sustainable, and scalable business models. In today's session, The Art and Science of Valuation, we have two prestigious speakers with experience rich professional backgrounds. So I'll give a very brief about our two speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Rajiv Sharma. Rajiv Sharma is a CA and MBA with 18 years of experience in equity research, consulting, and corporate strategy. Rajiv heads the institutional equity research at SBI Caps, and prior to this was director, telecom, internet, and media with HSBC for 13 years. He's highly rated by equity market investors across geographies and has a wide network in the new economy ecosystem. Rajiv has worked on multiple IPOs and fundraising assignments, separately proven track record of understanding new technologies and modeling techno-commercial aspects. Rajiv is very strong on understanding business models, valuations, and other approaches, business due diligence, and the market narratives. He has achieved rank number one for the stock picking in the information technology Thomson Reuters Analyst Award 2017, ranked number three for the best telecom sector as per 2016 and 25 Asia Money polls, and has also received ET Now Starmine Analyst Award 2010-11. Our second speaker, Mr. Aishwarya Kachal. He is founder of Goom Bike, an electric vehicle and battery subscription platform incubated at the Harvard Innovation Lab. Goom has given access to clean electric mobility to more than 10,000 people in India. He has built pioneering businesses in technology, general insurance, banking, telecom, clean tech, and clean mobility. He has been on the founding team of two publicly listed companies in India, Yes Bank, Indus Towers, and the founder of an EV startup. Today, he is building a pioneering business in electric vehicles, incubated at one of the best incubators in the world. He co-chairs HBS Alumni Angels India, a global angel investing group investment committee member and mentor at IIT Delhi's Incubator and Seed Fund. He is also an advisor at EUVA Committee and BIRAC, a public sector enterprise government of India. Without taking much time now, I would like to hand over the session to of my co-founders, Mr. Mohit Goyal and Mr. Jitendra Helawat.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah. Hi, Aishwarya. Hi, everyone. Hi, Rajesh sir. So shall we start?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So it will be kind of panel discussion. So yeah, you both can jump in whenever you feel necessary. So my, first, as in, because everyone wants investment, every startup want for investment nowadays. So as of now, my first question will be from Rajiv Sharma sir. So what will be, as an investor, what is the process of valuation of startup, or how will you value a startup for investment? So yeah.
Well, yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Interesting question. So there are various ways in which this can play out, and the process is simple. First, really, it is the founders and the team which matters. That's got a huge weightage, and that is where you start with. That's your starting point, and that's a center point as well. Everything is around that. Second aspect which you will generally look into is the industry or the sector, where the startup is there and where is the growth, means how is the growth mapped with that particular sector. Generally, the VCs or angel investors, they really love high growth sectors. high growth markets, and anything which really fits the bill there will definitely be interesting for the potential investors.
Yeah.
The third question is about your business model. That what is your business model, and how do you plan to make money? And another related aspect before business model or around that is there a first mover advantage? Because first mover advantage also leads to FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Okay.
And then you can command premium, because there will be multiple guys chasing you, and those who are evaluating you will be pressing their accelerator to really get into the cap table. That's an equally important. And the other related aspects are the scalability. If it is anything as a service, software as service or network as service or anything as service, generally the perception is those are very scalable models. And anything which is scalable, where once you reach a particular kind of threshold, or in terms of revenue, size, market, then the profitability, the growth really accelerates. So you will definitely look for scalability. The other consideration also goes in, what is the cost of duplicating or replicating this kind of stuff?
Okay.
But this is a very back of the envelope kind of method or approach, because it's not taking into the intellectual capital, it's not taking into the brand capital, which are intangibles, but need a lot of merit and consideration. So broadly, these will be the aspects which you start with, and then let's say if it's an early stage, then you really don't have much to really dissect and slice and dice on. So the interesting joke is that when you have some growth and there is revenue, it is easy to apply a multiple to revenue. But
Okay.
if you don't have any revenue, then it is very interesting, both from a founder perspective and the investor perspective, because till the time you don't have revenue, there is no problem of multiple, because you can get anything.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think broadly you look into these aspects, and then you'll have to be very specific to each deal, each transaction. So Aishwarya, you'd like to add anything here?
Yeah, Rajiv, I more or less agree with what you say. What I would say that there are two parts to investing in a startup. One is evaluation of the startup, whether it makes sense to invest in that business. And Rajiv critically highlighted what goes in. Are you chasing the right market? Are you the right team that can win the opportunity? And are you have you displayed some sort of attraction, some sort of an early indicator that you can go out and capture the opportunity? And the other part that I would like to highlight is this as and the topic of this webinar is whether it is an art or science. And see, at an early stage, it is a lot art, because what you are trying to really fish is there something out there? And as you keep going along and you get to a revenue stage, and hopefully all of us will build very substantial revenue companies, then it starts becoming a science. Multiples is clearly one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is what is the serviceable obtainable market that you are chasing, and what is the pie that a startup can reasonably capture. So this is how I think investors look at valuation, evaluate a startup when people like us go to people like Rajiv to get money out.
Yeah. So we have seen, in the past also that when when there is a operating profit company, so which is a cash positive company, investors are very less keen to invest in those company rather than where there is a multiplier, where the growth oriented is more invest, whether this is, even if the company is loss making, but investors are very keen to invest money in those startups. So what is the, reason behind that?
Uh, Rajiv, you want me to please, Rajiv?
Yeah, please go ahead, and then I can, I can add.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand, who are the investors that we are chasing.
Okay.
If we are talking to a venture capital investor, we
Hmm.
have to understand some sort of a venture economics as well. See what they are looking at. So one investment should return the entire fund. So if they have X amount of capital and let's say they distribute it into 10 startups, then each of these startups needs to have a potential of returning the entire fund, which is 10x the value of the investment that a fund makes into a particular startup.
Yeah.
What happens when your revenues or cash flows get defined? See, typically business starts making cash flow when the revenue story, when the market, and when see, you people make cash when they cannot deploy it back into the business, and that happens when growth has flattened out. So if you are a VC investor, you probably would not like anything that's making substantial cash where growth has filtered out. See, understand the business of VC is about putting money where growth is so that they can return 10x on each of the investments that they make. It's a business where you are trying to maximize your successes rather than minimizing your losses. So 9 out of 10 investments go bad, but the VC game is about picking up that one winner which will return the entire fund.
Yeah.
Just couple of thoughts there. So as Aishwarya rightly points out that it is horses for courses. So even if you look at the public markets and just look at the mutual fund industry, your funds are categorized in mid caps, small caps, large caps, and that's based on the market capitalization and the growth characteristic or attribute there. In small cap, generally the broader perception is that you will not have quality. The risk is higher, the growth is higher, and you pay more for. Means you expect growth for taking more risk.
Yes.
Also, let's take a step back and understand that why this whole VC, investor community was, historically formed. So there was no institutions which were willing to invest in innovation and new markets. This is an institution which, and the first VC was the Queen Isabella of Spain, who funded Christopher Columbus, with ships and food and supplies to capture some overseas market. So it's taking a huge risk, and she was called insane, but rest is history. So because institutions which are doing operating profit, there's a plenty of money chasing that. But businesses which do not have anything, seed stage, early stage, while we say that art and science, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get maximum out of that founders, eh, and nothing else at that stage. And you have all kinds of guys who, so the Instagram founder was able to raise 500 or half a million at the early stage itself. So it is about an institution or a set of investors who are incorporated to fund innovation, which no one was. And the whole idea here is to assume more risk, and it's a J curve, and the J curve is towards the end you get to the J curve. The bad ideas which the VC will fund, those results will be visible in the second or third year of from that fund itself. And now you have new concepts which Secure and others are doing, where it is becoming no more financial capital but production capital. So you've gone into funds which will never have any maturity of 7 or 10 years, but there are perpetual funds like any other funds, like the way Tiger has been
Yes.
operating. So which is going to create a very interesting opportunity for SaaS companies in particular, that there will be money for early stage where the concept is early for SaaS companies, even growth stage or even late growth stage, because there is no rush to close it out in 7 years. Otherwise, it was just attracting one kind of growth. Now the growth has its own variety, with the VC industry also pivoting itself to a new approach.
So in some summation, if, to get a funded, so it's better to be growth oriented rather than operating cash oriented.
No, not really, Jitendra. It
Yeah.
depends upon, the kind of business that you are building.
Yeah.
And that, if you are building, so what I've learned during in my startup and, the earlier companies that I've worked for, is that there has to be a startup investor fit as well. You have to understand what is the risk and the return profile of your business, and according to that you will go out and seek the right set of investors. So a business which is making cash flows, which is able to fund itself, the question is, why will you want to dilute and get somebody who's sitting on your head and takes a pie of your company? But if you are willing to play the high risk, high growth game, then you are better off looking at a venture capital kind of capital.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, very well said, sir. So we understand that there are so many factors, perceptions have in the investor's mind while they are evaluating of any company, any startup. So, but in many of our discussion, when we are discussing with the startup companies, generally they will ask in a very initial stage, they will ask that what investor will give the weightage on the certain factors, like whether the team, whether their idea, whether their traction, or they look on the revenue side or the technology side. So what is the most important factor, most weighted factor that investor looks like, and upon which the startup should focus on?
Yep.
So Aishwarya, I would like to ask
So,
first from you, and then Rajiv sir will add on definitely on this.
Mohit, great question. And great question. But let me break this question down. It depends upon what stage you are trying to raise capital. When somebody is trying to raise capital very early, what they are trying to raise capital for, hey, let's conduct this experiment and figure out that can we get something worthwhile out of this experiment. And when you are conducting experiments, the question that you would be asked most often is, how capable are you of conducting this experiment? Which could be your background, which could be the amount of work that you have put in. And that's why teams are very important at early stage. What they have demonstrated while working together, what are the capabilities that they bring to the table. Now, let's say if you are trying to raise a pre-seed or a seed round, so you already have some traction in place, you have an MVP in place. Now you are trying to figure out that, hey, do we have a business model here? And can we make money on this business? So questions will be asked to you around traction. Let's say people would typically look at your gross margin and, hey, can we sorry, I guess.
Yeah. You can continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So can we get to a stage where we have a business model? So that's what you're raising money for. And investors will likely ask you questions. The team has already been decided what you're looking at. Hey, can we make a business model out of this one? And now let's say if you're raising Series A. So the question is, your gross margin is decided, you've figured out how you are acquiring your customers. The key question is, can we figure out so many customers that this business can grow 10x in the next few years? Then the questioning will be very strong on what is the value add that you bring to the customer, how are you going to acquire customers. So essentially, the investor is taking a customer acquisition risk. So all the questions will flow from that direction. And obviously, it doesn't mean that they are not going to ask questions which the previous investors would have asked or should have asked. Now,
Correct.
once you move to a series B, then what you're talking about, hey, how can we hyper scale this business? And then how can we figure out an exit for people who are participating in this round? Because now, let's say the earlier investors have seen a fairly large jump in valuation. After a series B, what really brings in money or the jump in valuation is acceleration. So people are looking at, hey, can this business be accelerated to a 3x level every year in valuation, so that people who are putting in risk capital can gain significant amount of return. So that's how it works, in my opinion, across different stages.
Very well said, sir. So Rajiv sir, do you have something to add on this?
Yeah, I think Ashwin has covered it all. Just one point, the way to really see this whole thing is that the passion will matter, because the VC is investing for a 5-7 year period, and this whole valuations and unicorns is good enough to attract a lot of people into this, and but the real meat has to be vetted out, and it comes only from the ability to take those tough questions. What is the unit economics you want to focus on? What is that one thing which drives your vision and which drives your business model? If that clarity is there, you got it. And at the same time, if you recall, there was a time when Swiggy came in and Zomato was not getting into the food delivery business. But Zomato was fiddling about it, but quickly they got into in 12 months time before it really became a very big market. And
Right.
they had acquired
Yes.
runners or something.
Yes.
The question here is the team, the founders, the co-founders, are they willing to also revisit their assumptions in a time-bound manner, and that attitude is there or not? So, because COVID changed so many businesses, and the business models. So you have to be. I mean, that's just a recent big phenomena which happened. Zoom was there, but Zoom became so big because COVID made it big. But what about those who had a business model which was nothing to do, which was to do with the normalized world? So that certain things have to be also taken into consideration, but it's really difficult to measure this today. But a thorough passion, a thorough discussion on the whole business case will reveal that how much is the flexibility and adaptability.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
The one more question which is related to this, although at a lot of platform this question has been discussed, the question is that many of the startup companies who have the idea only, there are so many young people who have the ideas only, and they want to present their idea to the investors. So now they want to understand that what is the logic behind the same to evaluate, to value the idea. So whether is there any mechanism?
Yeah,
The investor will value the idea. So
Yeah.
these type of questions generally asked by the few of the youngsters who have the few very good ideas on this.
Second, I will, just rephrase this question again so you can discuss in both way. So, whenever I'm talking about very early stage when the startup is raising friends and family round. So whenever they come, they are saying that we are raising on 9 crore valuation or 5 million valuation, or you can say 10 crore valuation, but they don't have anything to show that, back up that valuation. So how we can, measure that this valuation, though we have safe note or CCD round where we can convert in the future value, but many of the startups are, still doing equity round at the early stage from friends and family. But on what basis we can say that, yeah, this valuation is complete, or from the investor side also, from the founder side also?
I think from the, from a founder perspective, it is the friends and family, capital which they're able to attract is a good thing. It's a positive thing that there are some who are believing you. Now, this particular investment stage is a high risk stage, high risk, high return stage, and not, 1 out of 10 or 1.5 out of 10 will succeed, or even they could be, which 10 we pick up, and they can be 0 as well. But the broader question is, let's say if somebody's worked with Cisco and they're trying to do with something on boxes and, making boxes a commodity and trying to do something on the software side, you will understand that, okay, the competencies are related. There is rationale to it. Again, you go to the basics, which we started with. Is there a market for it? Is there a growth industry? Is the market being it could be a matured market, but is the market being disrupted? Automobiles is a growth market, but EV is disrupting it. Is there a market? You had appointment viewing in television, but OTT disrupted it. Now you have a Blue Smart, which is giving you appointment cab booking, but that's picking up. So while Uber is a different game, they have a combination of, looking at the market in a very different manner, that, okay, your office timings, you book it, you do avoid the rush. So despite Ola, Uber, they are able to, take some market share there, because they've approached the whole market in a very different way, both from the logistics and backend perspective, and also how they're positioning themselves to the customers. So I believe the possibilities are everywhere, even in a matured market or a market which is, in its third or fourth growth phase. But what you will look at that stage is the conviction and where the founder is coming from. If he's already done one startup and he's raised some money, then refer to Kunal Shah, and then that's the best example. But if that's not the case, it will depend. If he's coming from a related field, those competencies are there. That's a good starting point, and then you go through the whole rigor of the fundamental framework.
Mohit, you asked a great question, and I also get this a lot, that how do you value ideas? See, the way I look at it is slightly different. You have to be in love with the problem, not the solution. That's the first thing that I learned in startup, and that's probably the biggest mistake that people make. People come with
Correct.
a concept that this is a solution that will work, and it's a hypothesis. It may not work, but then you have to be nimble, flexible, as Rajiv had pointed out earlier, to move to the next solution. So essentially, instead of figuring out a solution and then looking for a market fit, so which we typically call a product market fit, I look at it differently. So essentially, it's a market product fit. So like Rajiv gave an example of Blue Smart. So Blue Smart figured out a particular problem that was not being solved by Uber. So they looked at different solutions that could work for that particular problem. And that's why I don't believe a lot in valuing ideas. I believe a lot in valuing problems. And what you are also doing when you are valuing a problem, you are defining the serviceable, addressable market. That, hey, this is the size of the market that I am, or the size of the problem that I'm going after. I don't know what works, and that's an honest statement. this is the hypothesis that I am willing to try out. This is the time commitment that I am willing to make. And then people will be willing to back you, because if you are going to take a few years out of your life, your opportunity cost and the opportunity that you can create is something that investors will value.
Correct. Correct, sir.
Yeah.
So, till now, we have discussed a lot from the investor's perspective. So now I'm moving towards the perspective of the entrepreneur or the founder. So sometimes the some startup companies comes to us and say that investors are asking us this valuation and they are asking this much of the cap table ratio. So how the entrepreneur or the founder should evaluate their company whether this valuation is correct for them or not. So generally this dilemma they have in their mind. So whether is it undervalued? I am giving the more share to the investors. So how the entrepreneur can evaluate these things?
Okay, so that Rajiv, sorry.
Yes,
No, no, that's
Rajiv
okay.
sir. Yeah, Rajiv sir. Please.
Okay. Let me just share some thoughts here. See, first is don't get, and I Ashwarya may have some different thoughts here because we are on the different side of the table.
Yes.
But I would say that don't focus too much about dilution in the early on, while you should as well. But the broader question which you should try to answer is, growing the pie. Because if you look at all these recent IPOs, the founders have been reduced to 5%, but they have innovative ways of clawback and during the IPO, and they're getting themselves rewarded. So the first question is, and the more you try to raise at particular stage, you're also building in for a higher growth expectation for the next round. That's the biggest red flag. So and if you do not deliver on that growth, then your next round becomes very tricky. So and there is nothing wrong with going steady. You will have your next round. So these are the three broader thoughts which from my end. And the other aspect is that you can do a calculation that, okay, I am here, I want to be at 10% or let's say 500,000 units or where. What is that is required? You just do a what is the manpower, what is the distribution cost I will bear in, and then think of a pre-money valuation, and then think of a so that should be a broader that what is needed for me to run for next 2 years.
Okay.
And achieve a particular scale, and have a couple of combinations in mind and assign some probabilities. And what if these two assumptions were not to work in?
Okay.
Arrive at a number, share that whole idea, and I think then there is hardly, and communicate it well. So for example, there is a not naming any company, there is a listed fintech player which is trying to say that its platform is more important, whereas there are analysts and there is media which is saying no, your share in UPI is important.
Okay.
So if your thoughts are not communicated properly, then to the investor community, and that's the reason recent IPO valuations are at a discount to the private market valuation. So the public markets are saying we do not agree with all that private valuation, and private valuations are unrealized gains. Public market valuations are where the whole liquidity gets tested.
Correct.
So so it goes down to the fundamentals, as I said. Ash, for you now.
Yes.
I would say Rajiv gave out some gems out there, that as an entrepreneur, you need to own the process. You need to understand that what is the amount of capital that you need to build a sizable business. And Mohit, the challenges you face is when people are trying to come up, come to you at the 11th hour, ki, hey, this is a term sheet that I have got and I need to answer tomorrow. So you need to own the entire process and you need to understand what are the key milestones at which you will like to raise capital in this journey. The clarity, with the more clarity that you know this journey, the more easier these questions are to answer. I will give you certain rules of thumb.
Yeah.
At a series A, and obviously this depends upon supply and demand of capital in a particular market. At a series A, the founding team should have 60 odd percent of the cap table minimum. If they can do better, hats off to the founding team. Second time founders probably do a much better job of retaining the cap table. And probably at a seed, you are looking at 75% being owned by the founders. But mind you, just look at the process, and I'll just break down the process into 5 steps. Why are you raising capital? Who are you raising capital for?
Okay.
How much are you raising? When are you raising? And how are you raising capital? If
Okay.
you have all of this in your journey planned, you will not give stress calls to Mohit or Jitender at 10:30 in the night that I have a term sheet. You already have a plan in mind that if I need
Yes.
so much money to build $100 million business, this is what I'm willing to dilute. This is what 6 months look like, as Rajiv mentioned. This is what 1 year looks like. This is what 18 months look like. And it may change. It may change. Life is uncertain. But you at least have a benchmark or a line of thought that you are going with.
Right.
Great. So one of our, same related question is, one of our audience is an asked question. We see at tech, fintech, and SaaS companies raising money 15x and 20x their revenue, or even just on the basis of idea. As a bootstrap founder, how do we reconcile this, and what is it based on?
Intuition.
To
whom, Jitender, you want to ask first? So
yeah, so both of them, the
No, no.
Rajiv would be better to answer in
Yes.
this because he's from investor side and guiding many investor to how to invest in the tech, fintech, or SaaS companies. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, though I've changed hat recently, but yeah, on that question, comparisons can be endless. I think stick to your core fundamentals.
Yeah.
If you can relate those multiples to your business model, your market, then a VC is ought to do that. He will, the VCs, he or she will, they will as well compare your revenues with particular matured companies and assign at 10x or 12x with the kind of growth what is left in you and what your aspirations are. So learn means benchmark or learn from them. It's very necessary you track them, but don't be fixated about it. You could command higher. You could, but as I said, the higher you command and the more you try to raise, the growth expectations will be more from you. So keep that in mind. If you don't deliver on growth, your next round will be tricky. So it's a good yardstick. Use it as a yardstick. Use it as for learning, tracking. But you have to have your own genuine thought process and fundamentals deeply there.
Yeah.
What I would add is, hey, in any market, it's a supply and a demand situation, and there are startups chasing capital, and then there are capital chasing ideas.
True.
And if you happen to be in that sweet spot where capital is chasing you, you have killed it, man. And that's where you read these stories. But if you dig deeper into these stories, you will be able to find out that there is a causal relationship, that the founder is not a first-time founder. He has gone out and raised significant businesses, or the investor has so much belief in the team that they can execute this opportunity. They are not only willing to write a particular round, they are willing to write a series of rounds. So they give the founding team, milestones. that, hey, for this much capital, this is the milestones that we need in this amount of time. And then a question of value comes. So don't go by what you get, you see in the newspapers. If you can pick up capital at that kind of a number, man, good for you. But this is not the norm. Exceptions and outliers will always be there.
Right. So this, I have one question which is related to this. So we understand that the founder, the entrepreneur should have the clarity of the thoughts, should have the very clear-cut vision, should have the projections ready with that. So when the entrepreneur start to project something, there are lot of information into the market. There must be some fact, some industry data, and there must be some fictions behind the scene. So how do we strike the right balance in all these aspects when the entrepreneur and founder project and give the projections on that?
A great question, and I guess it's directed at me. So
Yes, Ashwarya, this is directed to you. Yes.
see, facts don't sell, stories do. So if you go and sell somebody, okay, hey, this is what the business is, it doesn't sell. You have to sell the opportunity. You have to sell the deal, and that's a acquired skill. It doesn't come to entrepreneurs like me easily. It's the skill that when you speak to people like Rajiv, very often that you acquire. So that's something that it's practiced over a period of time. But then the question is, story will get you a foot in the door. Then people start peeling the onion layers, and everything, as a founder, I treat everything as a funnel. And it could be your acquisition to your revenue funnel. And the earlier you are, the more the higher part of the funnel will attract questions. So you may get into with a story that I'm going to change the edtech market in India. Great, people would love to listen to you. Then they would start asking you questions on your funnel. So once you get your meeting, then the questions are going to be on your funnel, because the story gets you, and story will get you money, but finally, when the evaluation criteria is how well you understand your funnel. You may not have all the facts. Nobody can have all the facts ready handy. It's how you are thinking about the funnel is very important.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rajesh sir, do you want to add something in this?
Yeah, I believe that this is where to the point which Aishwarya talks about that it's not about the facts, it's about the opportunity, and that's where the whole weightage lies. For example, let's say Twitter and Facebook, they're both part of the ads market.
Right.
But Twitter revenues are merely 4% of Facebook's revenues. And that reflects in market cap as well. Now, to that point, both are in the same opportunity, but how are you monetizing it? So the time spent on Instagram is significantly increasing these days, and it's all about videos. The text is hardly to be seen. But the Twitter, is not been able to pull the direct response marketing, which Instagram with videos, it's become the fair of aspirations. You go there to understand fashion, you go there to meet influencers, whereas Twitter is restricted to brand advertising or so the thing is, how are you looking at the opportunity is
Right.
so facts, opportunity, and how you're looking at it becomes significantly important, because that will decide monetization and that will decide comparison tomorrow, both in terms of revenue from that opportunity and valuations from that opportunity, which stem out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. So, so sometimes, the new opportunities, as you said that in the starting of that, the FOFO, thing is there. So let's say now even if you see the crypto companies are coming into India or in the, entire ecosystem, and there is no profit and nothing is predictable except for expense in the early stage. Does DCF method or any DCF method make any sense, or do we need to do something different to evaluate those kind of startup?
See, any method can fit anywhere. You take a DCF and take a discounted rate of 35% instead of 10 to 11%. So it is a risk which you are
Yes.
taking, and that's reflecting there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and see, I think those questions are different. Crypto and DCF, or new technology.
Yeah.
Now, what is the risk you face there? It's since 1980s, but where it has gone. And I would say that, even internet, it
Yes.
had its own bust and boom. And those models which were part of that disaster, the internet bust which happened, today they've become viable after 15 years.
Yes.
So there is a business model correction, there is a time correction, there is a myth, there is a reality.
Yeah.
So there is a rationality, and there is a storytelling. So most of them have worked. You can say that it was a time correction, but so that is how. But if you got it wrong at that point of time, you got it wrong. Best.com just was ahead of times,
Yes.
but they got it wrong. And so I believe and technology comes with risk. Early stage is always tricky. You will have to see how the technology is matured and what time it takes to mature. DCF and all are subjective, and you can always have 6 methods. And even in public market equities, you can DCF is the one of the most viable method, but it is still an second method or one of the 3 methods which is being used. The biggest method always in place across market is you speaking to the founders or the senior management team, understanding their conviction and getting a feel about how the business is looking like and the opportunities looking. There is no other bigger metric than that. And what is the story? What is the opportunity? So time corrections happen in technology. What is the risk you take? These are the important. And is there a IP? Is there a patent? Is there something which is very compelling? Those are the other factors which you will consider.
Yeah.
Aishwarya is smiling. He has something to add for sure.
No, I would say, this is directly in Rajiv's territory. He understands the TMT space better than anybody that I have met. I'll probably rally for the crypto founders out here and just say what, the IBM chairman Thomas Watson said in 1943. And there is this famous quote attributed to him that there is a market for maybe 5 computers. So, and that's the beauty of technology, that you never know which way it is going to unfold.
Yes.
And that's why, risk capital exists to take such bets.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, sir. So now we should take few questions which the audience has asked. Mr. Sunil Sharma has asked the questions that what should be the basic points one should focus at the time of valuation. Though we have already covered these questions, but I think we should give some thumb rules on that. So these type of questions generally asked again and again. So Aishwarya, if you can highlight the thumb rules on that, it will be great for the audience.
Okay, so the biggest thumb rule is that founders should have 60% of the cap table at Series A. That is the biggest thumb rule. And when you're looking at valuation, not only look at the valuation of that particular round, but look at what will it take to get to a Series A kind of a number. The other things that I would I'm wary of is the money not coming in at one go. So there has to be defined milestones because that's a very smart way of buying into a startup's growth story and say, "Okay, hey, today I'm going to give you less valuation, but I'm going to stagger my money over a period of time." So startups are about uh, growth curve plotted on a time series. So those are the two things that I would recommend to Sunil and everybody to be careful about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one question has been asked by Mr. Mohit Sharma, and it is a very, very basic question that how a startup can approach to the investor. So what is the way, what are the various ways, how a startup can approach to the investor? It is a
You
very
are the
basic
answer.
question, but
Mohit, you are the answer.
Yes.
they should approach to the startup stage. I
Yeah.
would like to say rather. So these type of organizations are already there in India. So yes, you are rightly said, sir. But in this, I would like to add something. So the startup can definitely find out the investors because they must have the approachability, they must have the idea, they must have the business acumen on that. Definitely, where there is a will, there is a way. So there are so many places, so many. So I can say there are so many ways to find out the investors. So, Jitendra, do you have any other point to discuss with the panel, sir?
So yeah, we can so how to there are technology startup we are saying, so how to ascribe value to intangible technology asset where industry is nascent but it's going to explode in future. Again, the same thing, like crypto, metaverse, decentralized financing, or all those things. So how we can jump into the picture so that we cannot fear of fallout.
Don't jump. You'll
Yeah.
not fall out. Give it time. Early technology is tricky. Weigh the risk rewards, because that's where, in the early stage of the early technology, the most failures are. So, I think go gradual, but keep a tap on the opportunity there.
Yeah.
Nothing. See, for example, when and if I'm wrong, Ash, correct me. When AI came, it was not a means there were many startups. He said we are doing AI.
Yes.
AI was a method to something. It was not. It is not something in absolute that I sell AI. You can do AI as service. You can have AIs built. So when it is early, they were. I remember when I was in my teens, there were computer institute which were selling. We'll give you courses on internet highway.
Yes.
What is that internet highway? What will you teach me? It was not. They didn't had any curriculum there. They wanted to take 25,000 rupees. So they had a monetization model though, but I didn't have. Now, so the question is that it is always better off to have some more visibility, not necessarily in your country. You could look at China, you could look at US. That's where we learn from, and then apply that, because that will decide the viability and give you some thought. So there is nothing to be, jumping there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, you're saying you will not fear to. So let's say crypto started in around 2010 or 2009, early or maybe earlier than that. And now, Bitcoin starting from $1, now it's, like $45,000. So how do you think that whether it's still a new market or it's a mature market or it's still, what kind of status you will give to that kind of market?
Regulators will decide the status, and
Rightly
but
said.
broadly they will coexist. But it is the regulators which will decide and if you have more Ponzi schemes here, then it will get demarketed and regulators will take a harsh stand.
Right.
Right. So yeah, 2, 3 frauds are already there, happened already there. Like
That's not enough. You need
yeah,
more.
yeah.
So So, as our the today's session topic is that whether the valuation is art and science. So, my last question is to, although I know that there is no clear-cut answer of that, but in your view, with Rajiv ji, that whether the valuation is more on the art side or on the science side. So, how you describe this?
So Aishwarya, want to go on this?
No, Rajiv,
Okay.
please.
So you can add. So my thing is, it is both. Do the science, be prepared with the science, and leave art with the investor.
Very well said, sir. Very well said, sir. Yes, Aishwarya, do you want to add something, sir, on this?
After Raj,
We are convinced with the Rajiv sir statement. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct on this.
So we have few questions, or so Nidhi is asking, being founder, I have been always focused on revenues and to raise money. Selling the story and opportunity is essential, as you mentioned. Can you give us some component of great stories, pitches, and opportunity that you have found compelling, and we can learn something from it?
Okay.
From your practical experience, we would like to, it's a nice question, and we would like to get your insight as practical from both the side, from the founder side also, from the investor side also.
So I'll probably go first. Nidhi, great question, and thank you for actively listening. I would turn the question back at you. What are the products that have completely moved you? And if you are asking concrete examples, the short answer is look at Airbnb, look at Uber pitches. These are available everywhere, and look at how beautifully that they are selling a story. And these. A story is moving when it is personalized, it focuses on a particular specific problem faced by an individual or a business. So those are the stories that move us. So if you see great pitches, you will see that they highlight the problem of the customer really, really well. And they then build the story from there. And Rajiv is an expert on storytelling. I guess storytelling requires another session completely. So I would recommend read up on storytelling. That's an art that a founder certainly needs to have.
Right.
So Rajiv, your input in that.
I think Ash covers 90%, leaving just one particular variable. If you can have your storytelling and your whole thought process building in some kind of community around it, that can be very powerful narrative which you build in. So crypto is what? It's a narrative which is, it means it is a narrative which is there that, okay, US dollar value is decided by the US government, let's decide some value of the currency. So it's a narrative. It's narrative. So, and it's driven by a community, you trying to solve for something. So there are many various angles you could build in. But the community one becomes a very powerful one when you build something around it as well.
Yeah. So many of the time we have seen because we are from the professional side. So many of the time we met, college student or young entrepreneurs. So they are always looking for a, breakthrough idea. But is it necessary to have an idea, breakthrough idea? They can something, built up, which is already in the market, just like, Ola build up, like, Uber, okay, Flipkart done through just like Amazon, and they grew, at the largest, value of the company. Swiggy, you just pointed out that Zomato take the same, business as Swiggy was doing. So is it, what is your your giveaway to the our audience or as an entrepreneur? So it's not always you should focus on the idea. Yeah, idea is necessary, but you can, if you want to do something, it's traditionally there are so many businesses. If you can just implement something good, that also can be be a good value.
See, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, I think the best situation is where you own 100% of the cap table.
Yes.
And that can happen when you bootstrap it. that can happen when you make your customers pay for your product. In the good old days, businesses were created like that, and we've seen, Rajiv can elaborate on that, that there are a lot of companies in US who want to go private. So they want to buy their equity back from investors and say, hey, the business that we are building, we want to have control on it. The moment you raise capital, you are letting go control of your baby that you have brought up with, love, sweat, blood, and tears. So that's something that you should be very careful about. The idea of being an entrepreneur, to each his own. And as entrepreneurs, we need to do soul searching. That what is it that we are trying to build? What is the scale that is comfortable to us? And Jitendra, to your earlier point, what happens is, the market explodes. See, in retail is a classic example.
Yes.
I guess, Rajiv, Indian retail is estimated at what billions? What is the number?
650
650, 700,
plus. Yeah.
650, $700 billion dollars of revenue. So any company cannot, so there are markets which are not one player owned market. Retail is a classic example. And
Yes.
what happens is initially you see horizontals in every business start coming in. So, you see Flipkarts, you see Amazons. Then, the next set of entrepreneurs start looking at niches that can be scaled up. That, hey, we will verticalize this industry because we want to specialize in a particular segment. That's where you see, Zappos and similar businesses in India, which are focusing on a particular vertical. And this happens across industries. Earlier people would want to make anything and everything, but now as the market keeps growing, these vertical niche keep getting bigger. And there's some markets which are essentially huge, will always attract new entrants. Telecom is a classic example where we saw that the market was so huge, and for
13 players.
yes, we had 13 players at one point of time. Geo made an entry as a new entrant, made an entry into the market. So there will always be cases like that.
One more thing which I'd like to add is that when it is about last mile and when it is about the 50,000 pin codes or 30,000 pin codes we have in India, there is no winner takes it all. There will be two. The rule of two will prevail here, or rule of three, because India is a tough market, and if you look between the two horizontal marketplaces, one has been focusing on the tier 3 markets and now getting into the metros, and the other one has always focused on metros and parallelly along in the tier 3 plus markets. So I think the broader question you were trying to say on the breakthrough ideas, the biggest breakthrough idea is that keep it simple. Your idea could already be there in the market, but if you have the again the right fundamentals and it can execute and deliver the similar experience and can have different micro markets for that, you will definitely have an opportunity to go ahead with. One question which I see getting popped up, and I'm just taking the anchoring role away from you, Mohit, on this,
Yes,
is that is being profitable, and I think it's been coming number of times, is being profitable a good thing or a bad thing? So it can be either. Because if you are profitable and you have growth on your side, nothing like it. Growth with profitability is the best thing you can ask for. It is like the tasty meal with diet controls in place. But if so, no profitability will come in, but the ability to capture the market and the velocity, these are important. Your ability to demonstrate profitability is definitely a thumbs up. But if it is coming at a cost of growth, well, then that doesn't goes well, because the kind of investors, as to what Aishwarya says in the early part of the call, that kind of investors where we are talking about in this forum are the one who are chasing growth and they are looking at 10x kind of growth in their valuations. So that will not come if you are profitable very early and you have left growth on the table.
Right. So Rajiv, one more question. So Mr. Manik Narang has asked, this is a very practical question, that why investor at large in secondary market not accepting the valuation done by the private players, as we have seen in the recent companies IPO like Paytm, Policy Bazaar, etc. So
Well, there are various ways to. I would say that maybe the private markets in general, how you should read that. Maybe the private markets have valued it on a basis of 2026 or a 2027, and they got listed a little early, or you have whole this macro, which is the interest rates going up, the inflation going up. There is a sucking out of liquidity which is happening. Maybe and then there is anchor investors pulling out. So there is so there are temporary factors which are short term in nature. There are factors these IPOs came at a time when the bull market we were in a bull market. So it didn't come at the early part of the bull market, but I don't know what is the end part, but I would say it came in where we'd seen a good amount of rally. So there was a lot of momentum there which they tried to capture, and maybe the markets are saying today that there seems to be some time correction, and there are some questions around some of them in terms of their business model and ability to really get to that scale. So I think this will get evaluated every day, and over the next couple of years we'll have the right answers. For example, one of the retail companies, when it listed, it didn't catch the eye, but today it's gone 4x from where it was on, and there are many such examples. Means I just can't restrict myself to
Right.
So, good business models which can prove their fundamentals, profitability, cash flows, scale, and if those can be replicated, even if they're capturing operating in 2-3 states and delivering the results, market is willing to give them a higher multiple because those business models can be replicated easily, and they know what's the numbers going to be. So it is more about business model getting to that stage where there is scale and profitability, and the growth continues for the next few years.
Right, sir. Because it is very early. Actually,
Yeah.
the IPO has recently came, so we should wait for some time. So
I'm not giving here any suggestion. You should wait.
Yes,
you should
no
wait.
suggestion. The wait in the sense that this.
I'm just trying to demystify that what are the various factors which have played out here.
Yes, yes.
So let me stand
Right.
corrected. There is no, hold and wait and buy at
Right,
low
right.
dips or something. That's not what
Correct, sir. Right, sir.
Yeah.
So,
So,
okay.
so another, are there any book, tools, templates, or book you would recommend for founders for pitching to investors for valuation?
Let me add here. I call up Aishwarya every 3 months or 6 months to ask, give me 5 books which I want to read. So please direct this question to.
I've already put that in the chat. What I can say is Rajiv is being very modest and generous. And for somebody who covered the wide universe of stocks that he has, internationally, he's probably one of the best well-read person that you'll come across. I would just take the liberty of taking Gautam Kondinia's question, which I just loved, which is the founder's investor relationship should be. I think the first tip is choose them well. Understand why are they investing in your business, and are they partners for in your journey.
correct.
Communicate very often. So have a process where you not only send out, let's say a monthly note, but pick up the phone and talk to your investors very often before you take any big decisions. See, it's the zone of no communication that SARS relationship. It's any relationship. Uh, it goes true for any relationship. If you keep the communication channels on, make sure that the investor knows what you are doing with your money. You will always be. You'll always have a good founder-investor relationship.
Yes, I want to add something into this, that because when the person gets married, so they have to trust each other. So this is the same thing when the founders and the entrepreneur are meeting together, then there must be a trust between them, and the communication should be very much clear, and uh, and there should not be hide and seek actually. So there is no principal and the employee relationship with them. They are partner. They should behave like a partner. So this is my view to look at it, sir.
Yeah. So to sum up the session, do you please give some, 5 pointer each? I would like to, ask from Aishwarya and Rajiv to our, young entrepreneur and fellow entrepreneurs. So what should be, if they are,
Yes. What should be the takeaway from this session from your
takeaway,
side?
and what they should be, looking from the fund? These are the founder side you should take care of, and these are the from investor side you should take care of those.
Yes,
things.
rather Jitender, we should ask Aishwarya from the founder side.
Yes.
And Rajiv sir from the investor side.
Investor side, yes.
So five things we should.
So, from the founder side, the first thing that I will tell you is raise money when you can, not when you need it.
Okay.
When you need money, you are in a tough corner, and so you won't be able to make the call. You won't be able to walk away from anything that is being thrown at you. So always be on that side where you can make a call. The other thing that I would say is don't treat this as a one-off interaction that, hey, I am going to pick money, friends and family, 50 lakh rupees, and my life is sorted. Please understand your entire startup journey, own the process, basic questions. Why are you raising money? Who are you raising money from? How much are you raising? When are you raising? And how are you raising? These are 5 questions that if you plot in your startup journey, and you will always stay ahead of your investors. That's something that I would recommend to all founders out there.
Very nice, sir.
Very nice.
Very well. Very insightful, sir. Yes, Rajiv ji, sir, from your side, sir.
Yeah, indeed, Aishwarya, very insightful. Even I learned from that. On the investor, I think, investor side, so remember they are looking for returns. And, let's say this is a seed round or something. Look at what, let's say what your future valuation of this company could be 900 million or $1 billion. And, how much you are asking him to put today, and he's going to expect that to go to 10 times, and he will be at 4% or 5% of that $1 billion. So
Right.
that will give you an idea how much you could raise, today. So could be 2 million, 3 million broadly. Second is don't worry too much about art science. There are various resources on internet, and whatever we spoke about, have your fundamentals in place, and then be passionate about the problem you're solving, which is, I'm just picking what Aishwarya said. Lastly, on the lighter side, I was listening to a podcast today morning that the prisoners, they get parole from judges after lunch or when the judges had good breakfast, which means, sometimes go, if you are lucky, if the investors are in good mood, they really are not worried about many other things, which then it could be easy for you to get the funding. But broadly, it's sticking to fundamentals, and you have to really show that you have, you are there for the longer haul. because this is not something which looks flashy, but you will have to give your 10 years to it to really emerge as a winner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the insightful from your side as well, sir. So I request Jitendra ji to give a vote of thanks to both Ashwarya and Rajiv.
Thank you. I would, thank you so much, Aishwarya sir and Rajiv sir, for such a insightful, from the both the side, from investor side also, from the founder side also, and making this, session rather than a quite,
Yes, it is a fruitful discussion.
fruitful discussion and in a healthy manner rather than we are pointing out question answer, and we were able to answer most of our we have got almost 100% of our questions which our audience asked.
Yes.
And again, I would like to thank you the audience which taking time, and thanks to both of you also for taking the time in weekdays. And after it's quite late, it's like approximately 9 o'clock. So thank you so much everyone, and thank you, special thanks to you, Aishwarya sir and Rajiv sir. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Thanks, Mohit. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jitendra.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Ashwarya. Thank you,
Thanks,
Rajiv.
Mohit. Thanks,
Yes.
Jitendra, and thanks to all those who were dialed in for this. We really enjoyed, the whole process, the whole discussion. Thank you so very much.